Well, welcome to Fill in the Blanks. And you notice we are back in studio for the first time since, gosh, almost 2 years with a live guest in front of us. And it is my dear friend, Dr. Bradley Jabour. Now, if you've been watching Dr. Phil for years, you've seen Dr. Jabour on the show. He honors us with his presence and wisdom whenever we call on him. Actually, he apparently doesn't have no in his vocabulary. When we call on you, you always say, yes, thank you very much.
It's always a pleasure to be here with you, Phil.
Well, you do such a great job for our viewers, and they light up the message boards every time you're on. They have so much interest in the things that you do. And just to take a minute, Dr. Jabour is an internationally recognized neuroradiologist. He's got more than 30 years experience in academic and clinical practice, having authored dozens of peer-reviewed research articles as well as textbook chapters. He served his radiological residency at Stanford University and the University of Southern California as well. He's a senior member of the American Society of Neuroradiology, having performed fellowship in neuroradiology at USC and interventional radiology and head and neck fellowship at UCLA. You've just covered them all, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
all the
Stanford, USC,
I know.
UCLA.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere you haven't been? He was appointed to the radiology faculty at UCLA, where he was attending professor in head and neck radiology and was chief of neuroradiology at the VA UCLA Medical Center. Until as recently as 2013, he was attending radiologist at UCLA Head and Neck Grand Rounds, and he received the prestigious Certificate of Merit Award from the Radiological Society of North America in 1991 for his research in defining the role of PET scanning in detecting cancer in the extracranial head and neck. He's gained national recognition for developing new techniques in cancer imaging in the head and neck using PET scan and CT. And I've really been fascinated by your recent interest in the field of the functional MRI, the fMRI. Tell us, so people understand, what fMRI is and its role in evaluating neurological disorders.
So functional magnetic resonance imaging is a way to look at the thinking brain. You can, instead of looking just at the architectural structure of a building, let's say the brain, think of a brain as a 3D structure. And when you're looking at a plan of a building, you're just seeing draw lines. You're not getting any information about how the air conditioning is working or the electronic system or what sort of sound system. With a functional MR, we're able to interrogate the brain's deep functions and see the connectivity between different areas of the brain and the abnormal connectivity, which we see a certain pattern, whether it's an Alzheimer's disease or whether it's a neuropsychiatric disorder such as depression.
Yeah, and I don't want anybody glazing over and saying, oh my God, these guys are going to talk about a bunch of abstract stuff. No, we're not. We're going to talk about things that matter in your life, all the way down to your children's lives.
Yeah, it's quite dangerous when you get a significant blow to the head. You might not be unconscious, just slight loss of orientation, and not realize that you've actually developed a tear in the artery in the epidural space, and then that goes on to cause a catastrophic bleed, even though the patient feels they're not super sick. They may be a bit nauseous. They may, as you said, be a little disoriented. So those are the signs not to ignore if you get a blow to your head, because it's totally treatable. Yeah. With a CT scan, you have to get an immediate CT scan, neurological examination, and if there's blood in that extradural compartments between the cranium and the brain, it's a very easy to detect thing on a non-contrast head CT scan.
Sometimes there can be a brain bleed that's slow, and it can show up hours, sometimes days later, and you need to pay attention and look for changes.
if it's a real strong blow to the head, I don't think one can overreact to that. It's a simple 5-minute CT scan if there's any doubt. It's always a daunting thing to go into an emergency room, and nobody likes to do it. But with a head injury, I'd rather err on the side of overreaction than underreaction.
Yeah. Let's talk about this transcranial magnetic stimulation, because what we're talking about, you don't actually touch the patient. There's nothing invasive here. You're not putting magnets in the brain. You're not putting implants in the brain, which are fine to do if you need to. And there are things.
There are indications for that, yeah.
That are indications for that. But this is much safer than that. And you're talking about mapping the brain, locating this area with an fMRI, correct?
Yeah, so we use a GPS system, a targeting system using advanced MRI and fMRI to locate the specific node and where exactly it is, because you want to direct the magnetic field, which is an external magnetic field outside of the head. It's, as you mentioned, nothing invasive, but the magnetic field can be targeted to within 2.5 centimeters from the skin surface, and also the epicenter you would like to target the specific area you want to treat.
So you put a
head holder with a device which has on it a GPS system. We have the 3D, the X, Y, and Z coordinates, north, south, east, west, plugged in electronically into the head holder, and you have an image that you can see where the epicenter is, and then you concentrate, or you angle your head holder so that the sweet spot of the magnetic field is over the area of the brain that you want to switch off or on, and to get more into rhythm with the brain's natural default mode network.
Okay. And so you then start putting magnetic impulses.
It switches on and off a magnet. So it's an electromagnet that switches click, 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 click. You know that noise in an MRI scan? It's just the same as an MRI magnet, except within a small device. And it changes the magnetic field within the tissues. If you remember from high school physics, if you have a magnet switching on and off, and you have fluid in that field, you'll create a current. So what we're doing is creating a current in the wires that represent the white matter wiring in the brain to switch it on and make it rhythmic rather than firing in a way that's incoherent.
How long does the treatment last, and how often do you have to do it, and for how many days in a row?
So there's a huge breakthrough. TMS started in 2010, around 2010, and the treatment required one treatment a day of an hour a day for 30 days.
Right.
And now, since about 2.5 years ago, and now finally FDA approved, is the theta burst concentrated TMS, where it's just 3 minutes. Takes 3 minutes to do what used to take an hour, and you can do 5 of those treatments in one day, so that rather than having treatment for a month, you can get a full course, 5 treatments a day for 5 days.
Okay, so this 3 minutes, 5 treatments a day for 5 days.
For 5 days.
So you're talking 15 minutes of treatment a day, spread out throughout the day for 5 days.
5 days.
And what's the efficacy?
80% of people with this treatment feel much significantly better, as opposed to just over 60% before. So there's a huge improvement in efficacy.
Nationally, around the country, what do these kind of treatments generally cost someone, and does insurance cover them?
Well, the good news is insurance is now starting to cover them, and so the Blue Cross and even Medicare are seeing the tremendous results from this. So that this is, as we're speaking, they're becoming covered by insurance. When not covered by insurance, it's about $400 per treatment. So that's for a course of 30 treatments. That's quite significant for most people. And even though the benefit from that, they feel it, and the productivity, getting back to their life, makes it worthwhile. The medication is very expensive too if you're taking pharmacological meds for this, but it's about $350 to $400 a treatment, I believe.
Okay, so, and you're talking about 25 treatments.
I think it's about $7,000 for $7,000 to $8,000 for a course of treatment. Yeah.
Okay.
But insurance is going to come through, and we always help people as well. As you know, we often do it for.
I don't know how you
nothing.
stay in business.
Yeah. Well, sometimes they're heartbreaking stories, and there's a tremendous good feeling for our team when we help people. So it's not always about the financial component.
Are there places around the country that do a good job on this?
Yeah, I think they do, and they use the traditional treatment. What we're talking about today is something that outside of certain academic and very specialized institutions are not being able to do the targeted imaging-based TMS, where you're actually able to subselect areas of the frontal executive area and concentrate on those. So the traditional treatment that's been going on for 7 or 8 years is a general treatment to the general area. They get about a 58% improvement rate, and there are centers all over the country that do it without imaging guidance. Now we will provide the imaging and send the database to the TMS centers, and there are plans to educate all those psychiatrists on how to use the imaging guided system.
So the primary impact now is depression and anxiety.
Yes.
And of course that is comorbid to so many other things. So whether you're dealing with a primary diagnosis of PTSD or whatever,
traumatic brain injury, or
TBI,
or especially things like brain degenerative disease. Depression is one of the most terrible parts of Alzheimer's disease, and if you can get people out of that depression, you're stimulating neurological tissue in a patient with a brain that's degenerating. You can give them more time before they have their memory slip away. And
it's got to seem like it rolls the clock back.
Yeah,
I know it doesn't. I'm just saying.
It just keeps the neurological tissue regenerating itself. And in stroke and in multiple sclerosis now, there are also very big applications for this. So it's a big advance generally, and I think we're going to see a lot more of this, including new techniques now like ultrasound targeted to areas of the brain. Repetitive ultrasound is something that helps with certain conditions such as essential tremor. You can remove this debilitating essential tremor where somebody can't lift a cup without spilling everything, and yet intellectually they're very capable, and it's not Parkinson's disease. Their intellectual abilities are good, and we can, using the imaging guidance, target the few neurons that are responsible for this attention tremor and numb them, and it knocks them out using an ultrasound focused beam that then returns the patient to normal, smooth function of motor skills.
Well, you're apparently a mind reader as well, because my very next question I was going to ask you about was about this essential tremor. I understand by doing this mapping and then using not magnetic, but instead ultrasound and targeting these specific neurons, you're able to switch off this essential tremor with 90% efficacy.
I think it's higher than 90%, actually. It's quite remarkable. It's a new machine that is a combination of a high-energy ultrasound machine within an MR machine, so that you're using the imaging, because the brain is not forgiving. You have to get the exact neurons that you're aiming at. It's very much Star Wars-like, but and the planning takes 4 or 5 hours. It's not like TMS where it's quite quick. This is it takes a team, a neurosurgeon, neuroradiologist, and a lot of pre-planning, but it is such a dramatic
Well,
solution.
it's 4 or 5 hours in getting the target, but then the treatment itself is one time.
Is
correct?
one time, yeah. Sometimes you have to repeat it, but mostly you'll get a dramatic, on one side, you'll do one side at a time. And if you get a tremendous result on the one side, which we usually do, we'll go back on a separate occasion and do the other side.
And the treatment is how long?
About 3 hours. But he's awake. You're awake, and it's just very meticulous planning. And
how long is the ultrasound bombardment?
That's a matter of 20 minutes. But it's all about placing and scanning. You have to scan. You have to find the specific X, Y, and Z coordinate of that epicenter of the area where the problem is causing the essential tremor.
Okay, but once you've got it targeted, 20 minutes. It may be 4 or 5 hours to get it targeted.
Yeah, I would say an hour. We don't rush with this. We make one patient for the whole morning, actually.
Well, you and I have a case we're going to do together at Stanford, right?
Yeah.
We're going to do the mapping here and then go to Stanford and do the actual.
Yeah, we could do it. Yeah, I usually do this at Stanford University.
Well, I'm really looking forward to that. But now, for people that haven't looked this up, and you can go to Dr. Google or whatever and look up essential tremor, but we're talking about, if you're one of those people that holds your hand out and, you've just got that tremor in your hand, and sometimes you'll hear a tremor in the voice, you'll hear it in the vocal cords and all, and it gets worse with age, right?
It does.
We're talking about 90+% efficacy in switching that off. Again, this is huge.
It's huge. So at Smart Brain and Health, we get the patients, we screen them, we see if they're, likely candidates to benefit, and if they are, then we will coordinate getting the care at the top centers in the country.
What effect does this have with those that have tremors associated with MS or whatever?
Yeah, it's FDA approved just for benign essential tremor. There's a lot of work going on with using this same device for a number of other conditions, including OCD. There are a couple of areas in the brain where if you target this using the MRI focused ultrasound, that's what the technique is, to certain cells in the brain, there's a feeling that you can break this ritualistic cycle that OCD people unfortunately have. But I think this is an area that is also going to provide other great opportunities for this type of technology. It also works with Parkinson's, but we're not. It's not FDA approved for that yet. That's a more degenerative disease affecting more than just a few cells. So, but in this one case of essential tremor, there's so many men suffering from this, or people, more men than women, that that we can't actually get to all of them because there's so much demand for this at the moment. It so revolutionizes their and brings them back to a functioning state. As you know, intellectually, these people are not affected at all, but it's just this debilitating social inability to hold anything still, whether it's writing or drinking from a cup.
Well, this is just so exciting. I don't know how you even sleep at night. Really, we've known each other so long, and you're so passionate about this. You must just go to bed at night and just sleep fast, just and then jump up and get back to it, because you are impacting people's lives so greatly. You've been so generous with your time with me over the years and taken me into your Star Wars facilities there. We've studied so many different brain scans and images and stuff, and you've included me in all of it because that's my background. And we start out for 5 minutes, and 4 hours later we're still there talking and looking at stuff. And I've just been so grateful that you've included me in the evolution of all of this and the breakthroughs. And you've been so kind to come on and help some of our guests that are in such dire straits and stuff. Some of the people that you've helped, as I've said, you've given them lives back. It's just amazing. I hope you realize what a difference you've made and how many people you're impacting and educating in the millions that watch and stuff. And I know they bombard you afterwards.
I'm just grateful that there are all these brilliant guys out there in the universities who do all the work that enable me to bring it out of the university environment into an easier venue for people to teach them about this stuff.
Well, I know all of you listening and watching are as excited about this for either yourselves, your loved ones, or someone you know. And we're going to do everything we can to put as many resources up on our website for Fill in the Blanks, on Dr. Phil, on our Facebook. And, at the top of that list, of course, is going to be Dr. Jabour's offices here, Medical Imaging of Southern California.
Yeah, and then there's one in Santa Monica and one in Beverly Hills.
Yes, and I've been in both many times. I think I have my own parking space pyloned off in front of the one in Santa Monica and my own parking space at the one in Beverly Hills. He keeps this body running.
Which reminds me, that whole body zero rad scan, where we can look into the body and find any tiny little abnormality, especially pancreatic cancer and prostate cancer. That's something that I think at some point, I think you had one, didn't you? No.
I'm sure cumulatively I have. I don't think I've ever done it all at one time. I don't think there's anything you haven't shot, is there, Nicole?
I need to show you that sometime. You'll find that very interesting.
I've seen the information on it inside, which is a total body.
Whole body MR, non-invasive, no radiation, amazingly accurate detection of the 5 big diseases: Alzheimer's, pancreatic cancer. Obviously, we see all other sorts of abnormalities because you're seeing every part of the body. But we get to catch things early while you still can do something about it. I always say, imagine if one image can save your life. And that's what the zero rad whole body scan is all about. So most people who get to be 45, 50 should think about doing this sort of thing every 5 years.
Yeah.
3 to 5 years.
And I don't want to gloss over this. You're saying zero rad.
Whole body MRI.
Whole body MRI.
We call it zero rad because they used to do whole body studies, but you used to do it with CAT scans. And I was always reluctant to do it with CT scans because that's radiation. So we developed this non-radiation using Siemens technology. Siemens is a big engineering medical company, and they make a fantastic MRI scanner that allowed us to use some proprietary techniques we've developed to look at the whole body and in 1 hour, 20 minutes, get an amazing look at and into the body. Because when you think about it, Hippocrates, the Greek scholar, was the father of medicine. Since that time, most doctors have relied on taking a good history, palpating, and using the stethoscope, auscultating and, percussing. And they've been doing this for 2,000-3,000 years. We now have a tool to look in at a molecular, at a very small level at every tissue in the body. Why don't we add that, given that we're in the 21st century? We should be using that quite routinely for people at the right time in their lives.
Yeah, the images you guys create are astounding. Like I say, I've spent a lot of time over there, and I walk in there and expect to see Captain Kirk turn around and look at me anytime because you've got this.
The imaging is amazing, isn't it?
It really is, because you see the person's face, and then the skin dissolves, and then you see the musculature, then you see the bones, then you just look through the body. It's astounding what you now do.
And now with the artificial intelligence added to it, the machine can find the disease.
Right.
I'm hoping I still have a job in 5 years because the machine's going to tell me it'll just spit out the answer.
Oh, I expect you'll find something to do. So it's Medical Imaging of Southern California. There's one in Santa Monica and one in Beverly Hills, just adjacent to Cedar-Sinai Hospital. I'll have links to all of that on the website. And it's Dr. Bradley Jabour. That's J-A-B as in boy, O-U-R, Dr. Bradley Jabour. And he has an amazing team over there. His wife, Nicole, is the one that keeps everything running. She organizes everything, plans everything, executes everything. And then Brain Boy here does
I just show up.
He pushes the buttons, but Nicole is here. Nicole, thank you for coming today and getting him here.
It's so funny, you call me, but you don't seem to find me, but you call Nicole and she gets it all going.
Of course. She's so buttoned up, it's not even funny. These two are both from South Africa, and they met in an airport, by the way, running to meet different airplanes, and Brad sees her and says, "Oh, hi, hey.
Oh, my goodness.
Can I have your phone number?" And she says, "Hell no." "Well, let me give you mine." So he did, and it took a while, but they did connect up because they actually had some connections through grandmothers and families and
small world,
everything. And I was honored to be at their wedding. How long's it been now?
8 years.
Has it been 8 years?
It's flown by, hasn't it?
Congratulations to you.
She Nicole. Put up with me for this time. Not easy.
Y'all do an amazing job at your clinics, and I'm, again, very grateful for all the time you give us, and thank you for today.
And thank you. It's always such fun talking to you. I learn a lot in how to communicate. We're just watching you and listening to you.
Well, we get it done, don't we?
You do.
Well, thank you so much for this time. I've taken more of your time than I said I would, but I'm so fascinated by this. It's my natural curiosity about all of this, and I hope everybody really listen to this. These are breakthroughs that are game changers. These are game changers in neuropsychiatric disorders, and I hope people really hear this and act on it. Don't continue to suffer with what we're doing. And we started out talking about head trauma and brain bleeds. To the Saget family, again, we are so sorry for your loss. I hope everybody will follow up and look at the links that we put. When we were talking about things, those images you can check later if you were driving or walking or doing something where you weren't watching, you were listening instead. We'll have those on the website. LaFern, you'll put those up for everyone. We will see you again and be watching for Brad on Dr. Phil, because I corner him every time I get an opportunity. So thanks for being here. We'll see you next time. Brad, thank you so much.
Thanks, Phil.
All right, bye.
Anxiety, dementia, and sports injuries.
Things that matter in your life and the way brains function.
With neuroradiologist Dr. Bradley Jabour.
Let's talk about this transcranial magnetic stimulation.
A GPS system for the brain.
It turns around depression.
No drugs, no side effects.
It's biologically 100% safe.
Fill in the blanks.
Why is this not being screamed from the mountaintops?
Available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.